2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've already got a question on Darwin and Jota here. Writing them off the back of your piece yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was on the back of yesterday's piece. I said months ago Liverpool probably need the number 9. Jota hasn't played for 2 months. No signs of him coming back anytime soon, is there?
He's done what? Hello everybody and welcome to your Friday edition of the Blood Red podcast, brought to you by the Liverpool Echo as well as our dear Blood Red sponsors NordVPN. I'm your host Theo Squires and it's Derby weekend, so there's plenty for us to get through today. But we are just a two-man show, as you can see if you're watching along on YouTube. But fortunately I'm joined by one of the very best in the business. It's our Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst. You were away 24, 36 hours ago, but you're back home now. How are you feeling, Gorsty?
Yeah, it wasn't even that. It was probably about 12 hours ago. Yes, I am tired. Been a long 2 weeks going to Southampton and then up to Newcastle. But this is the time of the year, isn't it, where seasons are shaped. And after an incredible week of Real Madrid and Man City, I think Liverpool fans may be brought back down to earth a little bit with the draw, which we're going to get into. But I still think might be considered a decent draw in a few months' time. But initially, I think there was some disappointment, wasn't there? But yeah, we are back and ready for another away day, but this time the shortest away trip of the season.
I can bring you back down to earth by pointing out Southampton's happening again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, like I said, we are live on YouTube, so keep us company, get your comments in. We might need them to fill out your full 45 minutes here. No, but as I say, there is plenty to get through as we look at Newcastle and the Merseyside Derby before we sink our teeth into the thick of it. To get the best discount of your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. As always, the link is in the podcast episode description box. It's the best place to go for your cybersecurity. I'm sure Gorsty was using it up in Newcastle this week to make sure none of those Geordies were hacking into his verdict or anything. But we will start with Newcastle. You've just touched on it there, Gorsty, but point gained or 2 drop for you?
Yeah, it's entirely depends on how full your glass is. Sitting in it, where you sit in the press box at Newcastle, it's quite close to the pitch, quite close to the tunnel. So I could see all the players' faces as they were walking off, and they all looked really gutted. And you can understand that, given the effort that they put into the game and the fact that they were looking on course for a win before the late equaliser from Fabian Schär. But I mean, Van Dijk said it after the game as well. That he's seen that a 2 points drop, but I think in a few months' time, I think you'll look at that and think that was actually a decent point. You know, Newcastle were really good on the night, particularly first half. So much better than Liverpool, sharper, stronger. Pressed Liverpool to within an inch of the life. This was a Liverpool team without 3 of the back 4 in Trent, Konate and Alisson. And you can even throw Tsimikas in there because at times he has been, you know, he's probably as close to first choice as he's ever been, really, since he signed in 2020. So, yeah, injury problems for Liverpool. They didn't start the game well. They looked tired. They looked leggy. They just looked a little bit caught in the headlights at times with the atmosphere and the fact that Newcastle flew out of the traps. So they showed really good resilience and mental strength in the second half to get back into the game. Obviously, with a lot of quality as well in Mo Salah and Trent, who I thought was excellent when he come off the bench. Jarell Kwanzaa at right back didn't really work. You know, that's only his second start of the season, his first ever start as a senior footballer at right back, and he's up against Anthony Gordon, who really had the bit between his teeth. So there were loads of elements of it where you think on another night Newcastle might have won that, and probably you could have a few complaints because of how well they played. So yeah, it feels like a bit of a disappointment coming off an excellent week where you've just beaten the champions of Europe and England in Real Madrid and City. But like I say, in a few months' time, in the cold light today, it might still be viewed as a good point. You know, Liverpool can't win them all. That's only the 3rd time they've dropped points this season, and we're in December now. So, it entirely just depends on how you're viewing things. I can understand both sides of the arguments, but you look at it with, I think City drew there, then the Arsenal got beat. So it's going to be a difficult place for everyone to go to, really. So, like I say, in a few months you look back and think, Liverpool are still 7, 8, 9 points clear, and you think that was a decent point. But for that to happen, Liverpool have got to carry on taking care of business, haven't they? Starting with Everton.
It probably feels like if it finished 2-2, everyone's a lot more positive about it. Liverpool didn't play well in that first half, but they came back strong in the second half. And as you mentioned there, Newcastle, they always seem to raise the game at home against these big sides. And in Isak and Gordon, they've got two of the best forwards around in the Premier League outside of the big three.
Yeah, they've got a really good squad, to be fair. I think that midfield is excellent. Tonali, Joe Linton and Guimaraes. I think they sort of complement each other. A nice blend of bit of everything, really. Athleticism, strength, power. Players who are capable of breaking lines with passes and stuff. So, it was always going to be a tough game. Isak is brilliant for me. If he was less injury prone, you'd be really looking at him thinking he could make the step up beyond Newcastle without being too disrespectful to them. Took his goal superbly. Possibly could have had a penalty himself. So, right across the pitch, they've got a really good squad, to be fair. So, always going to be a difficult game. Liverpool have got a good record there, but, never easy, are they, going to Newcastle? So, maybe, what is it, a couple of days on now, maybe people are looking at it slightly differently, thinking it might be a decent point. But at the time, I think the frustration was certainly palpable for the players themselves. And like I say, Van Dijk said as much after the game. Just a shame that Mohamed Salah's brilliance wasn't the main talking point coming away from the game, because second half he was sensational and yet again justified why he deserves a new contract, I think.
And I suppose there's that little bit more of a sting to it when you look at the other results in the Premier League that night, because last few weeks it's been Liverpool have won, Man City lose again, but then Arsenal win against Manchester United, and you manage a bounce. It shouldn't have been easy, but they did that quite straightforward. Chelsea absolute batter Southampton, and then City seemed to get back to form against Forest. Gaps 7 points, still considerable, but when you drop points in the derby down to 5, down to whatever, it does make it a little bit more of an eye opener.
Yeah, I mean, this week was always going to be huge, wasn't it? I think last week was a week the supporters probably won't forget anytime soon. Beating Real Madrid and City, but you've got to follow up with 2 more difficult away trips. And I thought Liverpool looked tired. I thought they looked like the previous week had taking it out of a lot of the players at a time when there's not too many other options to rest and rotate. You're playing Jarell Kwanzaa at right back there, who's probably 4th choice right back, who's Conor Bradley. Obviously comes in for Trent, and Joe Gomez can play there as well. So that was a difficult one already. That would have been a target on Liverpool's back for Newcastle to try and exploit, with arguably the certainly the best winger, but one of the best attackers in Anthony Gordon as well, who had a good game. So there are things to discuss and dissect, but on the whole, I think Liverpool showed good resilience, really, because at 1-0 down, a night game at St James's Park, it would have been easy for them to wilted a little bit, and you're looking at a second defeat of the season, but they stayed in the game, created chances for themselves in the second half, got themselves back into it, and it is just a manner of the equaliser, I guess, which is probably why more people are viewing it negatively than positively. But like I say, in a few months' time, we'll know how significant this night was, whether it was a massive opportunity missed, or whether actually it was a good point in the grand scheme of things.
We'll go through some of the individual performances now. We'll start with the positive. Mo Salah, you run out of things to say about him. Is it 15 goals, 13 assists now? Is it 21 games? He's Ballon d'Or form. He is in incredible form at the moment. And you look at those moments, the brilliance to find that gap to pick out the pass for the first equaliser, turning, finding that space to pick out the bottom corner. Could have had a hat-trick, of course, he hits the woodwork.
Yeah, he was really unlucky with that, really.
If Liverpool win the Premier League or the Champions League this year, for me, he's going to win the Ballon d'Or. It just brings up that contract question again. He's just been out of this world at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the Ballon d'Or is neither here nor there. For me, I don't really place too much importance on it. I mean, I'm sure Mo Salah does and will do. When is that named? Is it like October next year? Is it, or
November next year? It's now a seasonal thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I think at the moment he's probably the best player in the world, isn't he?
Yeah, that's just what I mean. That's the level he's playing. At the moment.
The main man for the team who were top of the Premier League and top of the Champions League as well. I actually asked Van Dijk after the game, on current form is Mo the best player in the world, and I think he might have given me a more of a colourful answer had he not drawn the game, but he just sort of said, 1 week you are, 1 week you're not. I want him to stay consistent, and to be fair, that's exactly what he's done, isn't it? It's not just the goals, it's the assists as well. It's not like he's not like a Haaland-esque where he's just getting on the end of chances and sticking them away, and he's vital for them in that sense. No one else really seems to score for City, do they, this season? So they need his goals. But outside of that, Salah is also creating chances and assists for other players. Look at the ball he laid on for Gakpo against City. Look at the pass he played on Wednesday night for Curtis Jones. The cross he puts in for Gakpo against, who was it? Was it Leverkusen for the header? He's just an all-round.
Real Madrid, wasn't it?
No, for the... I'm pretty sure it was Leverkusen.
Okay, we're going further back.
I mean, just these are
it's
proper
just
assists. They're not just like Busquets to Messi against Real Madrid that time where he just sort of rolls it and then Messi does the rest. They are proper assists, and he is an all round attacking force, isn't he? And he's in unbelievable form. Probably for him at just the right time when contract talks should be happening, should be getting stepped up. And I think I wrote it in the verdict on Wednesday that the arguments for not giving him a new deal are getting fewer and further between. At the moment, I don't know what the argument is. A Liverpool looking towards the end of, obviously supporters and the likes of us are dissecting what's happening here and now, game by game. A Liverpool taking a sort of wider lens view of it and looking what Salah's contribution might look like at the end of a 2-year or a 3-year deal, where it might not be as explosive and as eye-catching as it is right now. But it might be. Who's to say his levels are going to drop dramatically? He's certainly shown no signs of that as of yet. He's nearly 33, still probably as good as he's ever been, really. So I just can't understand why that hasn't, outwardly at least, appeared to be more of a breakthrough on those contract talks.
I think it went under the radar a little bit midweek, but he's now leading the race for the Golden Boot in the Premier League. He's overtaken Haaland.
Yeah, see, I didn't even know that.
Exactly, no one noticed it. And you think Haaland's got, 8 goals in the first 3 games? Something ridiculous like that. For him to catch up and now be leading the way when Haaland has been in a league of his own the last 2 years. It's only Saka who's ahead of him in the assists. He is just in the form of his life, and you think, I know you've just discarded the Ballon d'Or, but Modric won it in his 30s, Lewandowski, Messi and Ronaldo. It's only this year, when Rodri's won it, it's the first player to win it in their 20s since 2015. We probably need to reshape how we look at 30 for a footballer. It's not the end now. Yep. They do have another 3, 4, 5 years left in them when they are peak athletes, and Salah is certainly that.
Yeah, I think Slot said that recently, the day before the Leverkusen game. He's sort of likening them to Messi and Ronaldo, that he can keep posting these numbers well into his mid to late 30s. I mean, Ronaldo obviously in Saudi and Messi in America, they're not at elite European clubs anymore, but they are still huge figures for their international countries. Messi and Ronaldo still captains, are they, for Portugal and Argentina? Yeah. Still doing the business for both of those countries. So, yeah, I think that the way Salah looks after himself with his recoveries, with his diets, with his basically professionalism and his dedication to his craft, I don't see any reason why he should suddenly and sharply decline, unless there is an unforeseen injury, which can happen to any player at any time. So, like I say, the arguments against signing him up are just getting fewer and further between. Not really sure what Liverpool's argument would be at this stage, unless it's a financial thing, whether he's just asking for too much, which, you can have a little debate with there. But if he's after similar terms, I just think Liverpool have to get it done, because the cost of replacing him is going to be more than what the contract might be over the next 2 years, and you're not replacing him with someone who's as good, and you're not going to be guaranteed 20 goals every season. Salah's going to score 20 again, isn't he? He might even get it before the end of this calendar year. I think he looks as good as he has since his first season when he scored 44. So at a time when he's making it clear that he's receptive to offers and wants to stay at the club, let's get it done.
We have had plenty of comments and questions. Keep them coming in. We'll get them to We'll get to them shortly because they do go along quite nicely with the episode plan. But before we move on to some of those questions, I want to talk about Trent because obviously there were question marks about him last month. We know he came back from international duty with a bit of an injury, and that went under the radar. There was talk about his future. Gets benched against Newcastle, understandably, when he's just come back. But then he comes in, and he was superb. He gets his 2 assists, and he's right back to his best form. And you can almost put him in that Salah boat of what do you need to do to keep him?
Yeah, 100%. And Van Dijk as well. They're all in the same boat, aren't they? Liverpool, if they lose any of those 3, it's going to be a huge blow. But I think for Trent, it's the blow of seeing him go to Real Madrid. He's the one out of the 3, and we've spoken about this at length, and we have done for months and months. But Van Dijk seems to be the one who was most publicly relaxed about it. He did get asked about the story in The Athletic on Wednesday, which was Liverpool have offered an extension. He just shook his head and just said nothing to say, nothing to add. So it's, no updates, as it were. But he's always been the one who's projected the most confidence of staying from supporters. Salah, I think by now it's become accepted that he is really keen to stay. But with Trent, we know that Real Madrid are circling, and they've just got Kylian Mbappe on a free transfer, so you can bet your life they fancy getting Trent Alexander-Arnold on one as well. So Liverpool would not only lose a player of that quality and need to replace him, they'd also lose out on a huge transfer fee as well, because he's only 26. And for a club of Liverpool's model, they're not really in a position to be losing that sort of A, quality of player, but B, potential for a transfer fee as well. So yeah, it's a really difficult one with Trent. That's the one that remains on a knife edge for me either way, but he was really good when he came on. I think he offered, after nearly a month out, he offered a huge reminder of his quality against Man City, didn't he, with a couple of those brilliant passes, plays his part in keeping a clean sheet, and then comes off the bench with a couple of assists. So yeah, I think it was a timely reminder really as to what he can do, because I think Conor Bradley, what he'd done in his absence, I think supporters have started to think, Bradley's really coming up the rear here, so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if Trent goes. But I think losing Trent for nothing would be, an incredibly huge blow for the club, for the fan base. But just losing him as a player would be even worse.
Yeah, we just had a comment about that, basically saying Trent's great, but he's the easiest one of the 3 to replace. That's from LFC SG. I've seen he's got a couple of comments in, so we'll get to the rest later. But there is that Conor Bradley debate there. But surely if the club thought Conor Bradley was ready to take on that mantle, they'd have just sold Trent in the summer, got as much money for they can, and then put it all into the Conor Bradley basket. He's still so young, still picking up injuries, and they are very different players when it comes to that profile of fullback.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can do what Trent can do, probably in world football. I was saying to Doyley on Wednesday when we were watching the game, the difference in having Jarell Quansah at right back to Trent was just marked, because Quansah getting hit and maybe he's shifting back inside, going back to Gomez, or maybe the pass isn't on into midfield. But when Trent gets it, the other team almost naturally recoil, because he can pick a pass anywhere. If there's a run further ahead, he'll find them. He can switch it. He can play a little clever one into the final third. He's got every sort of passing range in his locker, hasn't he? And to lose that would be a huge blow for Liverpool, for any club really. But for all of the progress that Conor Bradley has made sort of in this calendar year, I think still to lose Trent Alexander-Arnold would be a huge body blow for Liverpool. And he's shown that in the last 2 games alone. A couple of passes he hit there, maybe 2 or 3 against City. The one for Salah, I think it was after the goal, when it almost like bends and curls and then slows down, and Ake just about gets there. That was right in front of us, and it was just a remarkable pass to watch it sort of in full flight. And no one else can do that really. Certainly not at Liverpool, and probably not in the Premier League either, from those deeper positions. So yeah, Liverpool have got into a bit of a mess really with the contract stuff, and we know that there are dozens of reasons why it's got to this stage. But I still think this one is on a knife edge, and how do you go about replacing him? I think Conor Bradley probably would be the answer, but you're losing so much, aren't you, if you lose a player of unique Alexander-Arnold's ability.
Now on to some of the less positive players from Newcastle. It's a bit of alliteration there, stumbled over that. We'll start with Darwin Núñez. It was a very difficult day for him. He probably should have scored 2, if we're being honest, at least. But it wasn't just the finishing; it was the passing seemed to be off when he was involved in the attacks. Everything was breaking down; it was slowing down. For Newcastle's opener, Curtis Jones is having a go at him because he's not closing down either the centre back or Guimaraes. It just didn't happen for him, and obviously the doubts are raising more and more now. The frustration is growing.
Yeah. I was, I mentioned a few times, a few months back, that Liverpool perhaps need a number 9. Diogo Jota has struggled with his injuries. I think I did the calculations yesterday, and Liverpool have played 244 games since Jota signed, and he's only played 155. And of course, some of that would have been rotation with Firmino and stuff, but he just seems to miss big chunks of every season now. He's nearly been out for 2 months since that injury at Chelsea. It doesn't look like his return is imminent, so that might even stretch past Christmas now. We'll wait and see. And then on the flip side, Núñez has got 3 goals in 18 games, 1 in his last 9, I think. And he missed a couple of big ones, didn't he, on Wednesday night? Maybe the first one where he's just not there quick enough. Maybe that's a bit harsh to say that it's a miss, but the second one...
I'm being harsh on him on that one.
I mean, the second one where he scuffs it with his left foot was just a huge chance, and he has to get that on target. And for a player of his price tag, whether that's right or wrong, I think supporters probably feel justified to expect a little bit more. We know he gives it his all. He's never less than fully committed, and he runs the channels, and he's a real handful. And supporters love his effort and his work rate and his commitment to the cause is never in question, is it? But sometimes the quality is. Sometimes the passes are loose, the touches are heavy, and the finishing is ragged. And you can sort of make, mitigating circumstances and allowances and all that sort of stuff. But at some point, some of that is going to impact Liverpool's title charge. And, he could have stuck one away the other night and Liverpool go and win the game, but he didn't. And maybe it's a little bit sort of reactive and harsh, but you're looking for things to discuss and areas to think where Liverpool can improve. And I certainly think that number 9 situation now is something Liverpool can look at for the long term, because they can get more from who's leading the line through the middle, because Jota spends large chunks of every season sidelined, and Núñez, he's nearly, 2.5 seasons in now, nearly at the midway point of his 6-year contract, and he's still really waiting for him to take flight. And I thought Wednesday night in particular was a poor game.
And obviously Jota has been out for 2 months now, and Núñez has still only scored 3 goals. One of them absolute worldie, granted, but the others are tapping on the other line. Another one's rolling it into the empty net when you've gone around the keeper. He's not scoring enough, and I know he's got this all-round game, but when your striker isn't scoring, he's got that big price tag. It's in that third year. You do ask questions. Another comment from LFCSG, and he's basically saying similar to what you've said. Liverpool need to replace Darwin and Jota this summer. Jota's injured too often, you can't rely on him, and Darwin is just not good enough. It's the 3rd season now, and you can say he's not improved at all in that time. It's still just glimpses, and when you look at Newcastle, for example, and Isaac had such a good performance, scored an absolute rocket. They both moved on in the same summer for club record fees. You are starting to look at other side strikers and go, is that what we could have had? It is a hard one for Darwin Núñez. He needs to find some form in the games coming up, and no better time than the derby.
Yeah.
We'll go now on to Kevin Kelleher. Unfortunate for him that a mistake has proven to be quite costly. He's had a great run in the team recently, and I think we're saying this every game at the moment. You are just looking over your shoulder waiting for Alisson to be back from injury, because he's on the verge of taking that place back. Comment from Michael Lee going, "Hi lads, I just want to say that I love the podcast." Thank you, Michael. As a Cork man myself, I'm absolutely gutted for Kelleher. He's been brilliant, and I hope he doesn't get slated for that error in judgment. I think Liverpool fans have probably appreciated how well he has played, so he hasn't got too much stick. But it's still unfortunate for him. Say if Alisson is back at the weekend, that is going to be his last action for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liverpool fans won't be too critical of him. I haven't seen any personally, and nor should there be. He's been absolutely superb since he came in, and we've spoken about him at length about how good he is as the unwanted tag that he has of being the sort of the best backup around. But he's certainly done enough to gain potential suitors if he is looking to move on at the end of the season, and I think he very well might be. But yeah, it was just a shame that that was a rare mistake, wasn't it? That he didn't know Shaw was around the back and sneaks it in, and Liverpool unfortunately don't get the points. But I don't think you can have a go at him. Look, penalty save against Real Madrid at 1-0. That game could have been so different. The save from Kevin De Bruyne on Sunday, if he slides that in, with 10 minutes to go, it becomes maybe a different game, and City are right back in it. So we can't be too critical of them. We've got to be fair, and mistakes unfortunately happen, and when they do, when you're a goalkeeper, they invariably lead to goals. So yeah, a shame, but he hasn't sort of lost any credit in the bank for me. I think he's been absolutely sensational, really.
He, of course, made that one against Anthony Gordon 1-on-1 as well. Normally you'd expect a 1-on-1 to be scored and the one at the end not to go in, and it's still a 3-3 draw. Yeah, he's been in incredible form. Go through a few more comments here. There is plenty of love for Kelleher, to be fair. The ship's cat, Kelleher's form has been amazing. His mistake is completely forgivable.
Yeah.
A few more comments on Nunes going, it's simple, he does not have the technique to be a goal scorer. Johan is asking, should Liverpool buy... I can't say his name. The Sporting Lisbon lad, Victor Gyökeres.
Yeah.
I've said that wrong completely. Gyökeres. Should Liverpool buy him?
I mean, I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest. I don't know. But he seems to be the hot property at the moment, doesn't he? Very much a traditional number 9, powerful, quick. Obviously, scoring goals for fun in the Portuguese league. I'd like to get the thoughts of Laura Hartley, who used to work here, a Coventry fan. Obviously, Gyökeres played for Coventry, didn't he? Someone who was linked to Everton fairly regularly.
Yeah, he was.
Brighton let him go, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a rare mistake for Brighton because their recruitment models are normally, so sound and work well. But I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest. But what I would say is I think that conversation around the recruitment of a number 9, I think that will or should be broached more in the recruitment meetings whenever they happen with Arne Slot and Richard Hughes and the rest of the team there. Because it's an area I think Liverpool can upgrade, whether it's because Jota's lengthy list of injuries and Nunes, wherever you stand on him, we're still waiting for him to take flight, aren't we, 2.5 seasons in?
I'm sure you'll be able to ask Laura after a few drinks at our Christmas do if she makes an appearance. A couple more comments on Nunes. Trevor Archer says he loves him, so obviously some fans are still backing him to come good. LFC SG says he'd take Kuna or Pedro from Wolves and Brighton. Yep. That's the fact that we're having these conversations now. You're looking at all these strikers in the Premier League going, would that be an upgrade on Darwin Nunes? It says a lot.
I like Mateus Cunha. I think I'm surprised actually when Wolves managed to get him because I think he was at Atletico Madrid, wasn't he? I think they paid 30-40 million for him.
He was the one who was always like the next Firmino, wasn't he? That's what they were linked to about a few years back.
He's obviously been catching the eye lately with 3 or 4 really superb goals. But every time I see him, he just looks like a powerful dribbler. Gets up the pitch, really smart touch, good finisher. Yeah, he looks like someone to watch. João Pedro is one who a lot of people are sort of banging the drum for at the moment as well at Brighton. These players are out there, and I think it's entirely fair to have the debate and the discussion over whether Liverpool can look to upgrade. Liverpool recruitment and keeping an eye out for players never stops, does it? A lot of talk in recent months about maybe a new left back, but I think in January Liverpool should. I don't think they'll do this, but I think they should be looking to improve the squad from a position of strength and really think a chance has opened up here to win the Premier League. Let's go and be proactive, be aggressive, and whoever we had lined up for the summer, can we get them in 6 months earlier and really sort of a sustained push in the second half of the season? In the same way Luis Diaz, we all know that impact that he had when he came in at the start of 2022, and by the end of it, he's starting in the Champions League final, isn't he? And probably Liverpool's best player in the 2 domestic cup finals as well. So, you can improve mid-season. There's always that talk of January's a difficult month, and it's not really.
Some of the best signings have been in January.
Yeah, Van Dijk, Suarez, Coutinho, Sturridge. Even going back, Daniel Agger. There is quality there to be had if you can do it. And obviously we just mentioned Diaz. So
Gakpo as well.
Gakpo, yeah. So I think Liverpool need to be having a look here and thinking, well, what can we do? And I think maybe another midfielder to come in, because Endo's not getting a look in, is he? Mm-hmm. I don't. Has he started the Premier League? He hasn't started the Premier League game, has he?
Gravenberch started every Premier League and Champions League.
And he's looking a bit tired at the moment. I think after Everton on Saturday, I think he's probably due a rest.
Yeah, he's not starting Girona, is he?
Wouldn't have him in the Girona team. Sorry. So yeah, I think there is an opportunity there to see what's about for Liverpool, certainly midfield wise, and then maybe with a bit more of a long term view to seeing what could be done. That down the middle as a number 9 as well, because like we've said, there are question marks to be had there, and this isn't just on the back of a draw at Newcastle. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I just think I said it a few months back that it may be an area for Liverpool to look at, and nothing has really changed my mind. Really, not saying it's an issue they need to go and resolve on New Year's Day in the way that they did when they needed a centre back in 2021.
Yeah,
I just think it's something that they can look at, and in the long term there are upgrades there to be had, I think.
LFCSG is keeping us going with these questions today. He said the squad is looking pretty thin and there are lots of games still to come. Why is Slot so reluctant to bring Endo on? We really could have done with him on Wednesday. I'd imagine it's because he'd have been sold if they'd got Supermendy in the summer. There was that bid rejected from Marseille. Yeah. He's obviously not what he wants in his midfield. He's rather put Curtis Jones there, for example, when he took Gravenberch off. Yeah. It's hard to see him having a long-term future at the club.
No, it is, yeah. I imagine he will walk away with his head held high and a pat on the back in the summer. But yeah, I made the point to Dory on Wednesday. I could probably see Endo starting on Saturday because his combative qualities might be needed in what's going to be a real, win your battles first and win the right to play, as the old cliche goes. But then he said to me, he hasn't done that once this season, so why would he do it now? And the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, that's probably right. There is a case to be made for Endo to start because of what he's able to do defensively. Win headers that will be needed against Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who I'm sure will look to pull onto Joe Gomez or whatever. The knockdowns, the second balls, all that sort of stuff. There is a case to be made to start Endo, but Slot has shown no evidence that he's willing to do that. So I thought he could have come on Wednesday night. Gravenberch's on a yellow card. He already looks tired. Would have been so easy for him to have mistimed the challenge, pick up a second booking, and then he's out of Derby. Alexis McAllister's already out. So, you could have made that argument, but the fact that Slot is insistent that Endo's role is to basically come on and see games out with 5 minutes to go, I think that the writing is looking like it's on the wall now for him and his future. So Liverpool, as a result of that, will look to, should be getting the midfielder in just for sheer numbers more than anything else. So why not do it in January?
One last bit on Newcastle before we move on to the derby, and that's Gomez and Quansah. It didn't work, did it, with Quansah at right back? You do look at it now in hindsight, should Gomez have played there because he's got lots more experience there? But I think whoever it would have been, they'd have struggled against an informed Gordon wanting to prove a point, and Isaac. It's just Liverpool, the injuries are catching up on them, especially in that defence. Yeah, and it's easy to say, isn't it, why didn't Gomez start right back? Because he played loads of times there at right back and Jarell Quansah hasn't. That seems fairly logical, but how well Gomez had played against City at centre back alongside Van Dijk, I could see why Slot wanted to basically keep it as it is and just let them build up a partnership, particularly if Konate is going to be out for the next few weeks. So I could see why Slot did what he did. It was always going to be a difficult night for Jarell Quansah, and Gordon really brought his A game, didn't he? So tough for Quansah, but you're right, it didn't work. But I could also see why he was reluctant to throw Trent into the mix as well, because he hasn't played a lot of football, been out with that muscle injury at Aston Villa, or against Aston Villa, which was a month ago now. So I guess his hand was forced really by the injuries to Bradley and Konate and Alisson as well at the back. Keller has been great, but I think Slot's said, hasn't he, and maintained consistency that Alisson will return when he's fit. Everton next up, and Merseyside Derby last one at Goodison. You'd say form goes out the window, but I suppose Everton are now the informed team. They won the last game, Liverpool didn't. But it's going to be a tricky one.
No, I mean, I haven't seen the goals, but apparently they obviously put Wolves to the sword quite handily with 4-0, which was a massive break in what has gone for them the last few months. They don't think they scored a goal in November, did they?
The sauce producer Ian, did they?
I think they scored a goal in November.
October.
Yeah. So scoring four against Wolves was a massive change in the narrative. So yeah, they'll be buoyant. I think Liverpool are benefiting from the fact that it's half 12.
Yeah.
I think had this been a night game, supporters would be well up for it. Not that they're not going to be, but the last Goodison Derby, they would remember April like it was yesterday when they beat Liverpool fairly comfortably. Liverpool who were at the end of the tether really after such an emotional few months and an injury hit few months. So Van Dijk said the other night, he got put to him about Everton fans singing "You lost the league" at Goodison Park, and I think he just said they can chat whatever they want, and it was a bit of a wry smile from Van Dijk, and I got the impression that he will be drilling at home in the dressing room. You'd imagine that he will be desperate to put that right on Saturday, and Liverpool have not got a great record at
No.
Goodison, have they really?
Last win was what, Klopp's first one? Mane last minute?
No,
Is that not the last minute? Oh no, Rafa. Yeah, Rafa, sorry. Yeah, he only won 2.
But that one was just so out of sync with what normally happens in derbies. Where the old cliches are cliches for a reason, where you have to win your battles first and foremost, and I think Everton will look to sort of pick up second balls with maybe McNeil, Calvert-Lewin. Does he start? I think he probably should over Beto. Broja played the other night, didn't he? Does he come back in? He hasn't played a lot of football. So I think whatever team Sean Dyche selects, I think it's going to be a real battle. But I think Liverpool benefits a little bit from the timing of the game. And okay, they do have injuries, but they've got the superior quality. I don't think there can be many arguments about that. So it's just about making sure that you're in a position to be able to show that quality on the day.
I think we've had some whispers in the office that the Blues are crying it in. They don't see it as the last derby. That was the one in April. It's a free pass for them because they've just beaten Wolves. Obviously, it'd be very different if they get the result on the day. But it's strange how the results this week do change that approach. It's not quite Sean Dyche is under as immense pressure as he was. And you can't really accept a draw in the derby now. Liverpool kind of need the 3 points more after drawing up Newcastle.
Yeah, 100%. It'd be interesting to see how Klopp plays it, because Klopp always had this idea that I'm not playing the team who are the local rivals. I'm not playing the team who've got incredible storied history with over 100 years. Playing the team who are, wherever they were in the table at the time, struggling for a few years under a number of managers. And at times, it come back to hurt Liverpool. I seem to remember him starting Dom Solanke up front in one derby, and he made 6 or 7 changes for it, and it was 0-0 at the time when Liverpool were going for the Champions League a few days later. So I think there was a stat, actually, can't remember it exactly because it's a few years old now, but he very rarely played Salah, Mane and Firmino as a front three against Everton. He always looked to try and chop and change.
That's why Origi scored so many against them.
Yeah, it will be. Will Slot see this as playing a team who were having a tough period, Wednesday side, and who were, struggling to sort of keep their head above water? Or will he see it as the team who the local rivals who supporters really want to get one over on and all that sort of stuff? I think he might take the emotion out of it, because he doesn't seem like a manager who, definitely isn't a manager who sort of makes these decisions based on that sort of supporter emotion and supporter feeling. But you can't totally discard it either, so it'll be interesting to see how Slot approaches it. But on the flip side, he hasn't really got the options to make too many changes anyway, has he?
A few comments here from Floria, who is a regular viewer of the post-match podcast at the very least. Always exchange pleasantries with him when we're doing them. First one is just telling you what happened in that Everton-Wolves game. All 4 goals were set pieces and 2 of them were own goals.
Yeah.
Liverpool obviously just have conceded an equaliser off a set piece, but then if you think of Aston Villa, that could work in their favour. Hit Everton on the counter-attack. If Van Dijk and all the defence are at their absolute best, wait and see how Arne Slot fields that. But he also asks, Gorsty, Redmen TV are currently airing their show featuring you right now. Which podcast should he be watching?
I mean, both. If you like seeing Mike height on your screen, I'm not sure why you would. Maybe the audio version is best for both of those. But yeah, the blood red is numero uno, isn't it? What was interesting was yesterday talking about the game on Saturday with a couple of my mates, a couple of blue mates, and they said See, the problem for us is we haven't got our top scorer. I think Calvert-Lewin injured. They said no, Craig Dawson's out.
Florian's also got another one which doesn't really have anything to do with Everton or Newcastle, but is about the depth in the squad. Would you bring Bajcetic back, because he could be a backup right back, a backup six, and other midfield rotation?
Have Liverpool got that option to recall?
I don't even know.
I'm not sure.
It doesn't sound like he's absolutely thriving in Austria. He's in and out the side a little bit because he is still so young, finding his way after injury.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't he? He hasn't played a lot of football now for nearly 2 years, really. And Slot spoke about him actually on the day his move to Salzburg was confirmed, and he basically said, there is a plan for him. A long term, he will be a Liverpool player, but at the moment, the plan is for him to go and play. So, if he comes back to Liverpool, he's not going to get those minutes, is he? He might be able to slot in where Gravenberch plays a little bit, but as we've seen already, that Gravenberch is having the season of his career. Looked a little bit tired on Wednesday night, but generally is having a brilliant season. Probably Liverpool's best player, if you ask me, maybe after Mo Salah. So he's not going to play too often if he comes back. So maybe Liverpool feel that it's best to just leave him where he is, playing in the Champions League for now. Playing at a really decent level in Salzburg under a manager who knows him well. And, he'll come back next summer with more experience and hopefully 100%.
LFC SG asks, your best Goodison memory?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that 21, was it December 2021 when Liverpool went 4-1, and it was just such a surreal one because I think it's probably the only time it's ever happened where the away fans are singing for the Everton manager. They were singing about Rafa Benitez, and it was almost part sort of ironically where they were taking the mick because he was the Everton manager, he was getting battered, but also there was still that little bit of warmth and reverence for him for what he did at Liverpool. And Liverpool were brilliant that night. It was round about the time when they were just looking like, being one of the best teams in Europe. I think they beat United 5-0 maybe 6 weeks or so earlier. It was round about the time when they were beating every team in their Champions League group, Atletico Madrid, Porto and AC Milan. They beat all them home and away and really set the tone for a sustained push for major honours in the second half of that season, which we know how it turned out, but it was a brilliant sort of run, and that that 4-1 win was so out of sync to what we've seen in so many derbies over the years. So I always like to refer to that one. But Gary McAllister probably holds a special place in many supporters' hearts, doesn't he, for that winner in...
We still sing about it for a reason.
Yeah, April 2001. So, yeah, there are a few to choose from, but maybe not as many as you'd think, because they tend to be sort of hard-fought draws.
Hopefully we'll be saying Saturdays. Paul has said, is there a risk about tomorrow's game being postponed with the storm forecast? Now, I believe Gorsty's Everton counterpart, Joe Thomas, is addressing this one, so keep an eye on the Echo website for that. I believe he's asking the question at Goodison. I suppose all that's left really is to talk teams and predictions. Obviously, we know Liverpool are going to be without Alexis McAllister, but there's the question of could Chiesa be back? Could Alisson be back? Start with your back five, Gorsty.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get an update from Arne Slot later this afternoon, but I don't see Alisson coming straight back in.
Especially not for this one, would you?
Yeah. I know we said about once he's fit he will, but we're still waiting for that, aren't we? Yeah, Trent will come back in. I think Gomez will keep his place over Kwanzaa. And obviously Van Dijk and Robertson has to play now, doesn't he?
That is why I wondered if that was why Gomez came off early against Newcastle. Like, he'd just taken a shot into his face, so maybe there was potential concussion there. But it could be, we'll protect you so we can give Robertson a rest coming up, because he's started 4 or 5 in a row now. Yeah,
but I just think as well, maybe, game state situations, substitutions, not every sub is with the next game in mind, and he just needed to get Trent on the pitch and get his creativity on the ball and get further up the pitch, and that worked wonders really. That was a really timely substitution. So yeah, I think Gomez will carry on, and at left back there aren't too many other options, are there? Even though I'd probably pick Robertson anyway if Tsimikas was fit. But yeah, the options are really stretched defensively.
Yeah, was it 5 available, and you can't have them playing every game. You're going to have to rotate a little bit against Girona, but you don't really have those options to rotate. It's going to be a tricky one. Midfield probably picks itself. No McAllister, so it's an easy 3. Elliott, you probably hold back.
Yeah.
So you can just confirm the 3, but I'd imagine...
Yeah, Jones will drop back, won't he? And Szoboszlai will start as the number 10. I think he'll be important, Szoboszlai, anyway, just to get about the pitch, get some energy in there and close down Everton, stop them from from playing the way they want to play, which I'm sure will be, like I say, second balls in and around Liverpool's area with the likes of McNeil and whoever else, Illman and Dye. Is he fit?
Seems to be their star man at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen little bits of him. He looks like a handy player. So yeah, Szoboszlai will be important, and Jones just dropping a little bit deeper to cover for McAllister, who I think is probably a massive blow, really.
Yeah, same three for me. As I said, I'd hold Elliott back and let him start against Girona. I reckon that's a good opportunity for him. The front three, I'd imagine it's Darwin Núñez dropped, but Chiesa could be an option. He scored for the 21s midweek, got an hour under his belt. Liverpool obviously being very careful with that. You're not going to start him in the derby, but it'd be great if he could score off the bench.
I don't see him coming back yet. I think Chiesa at the moment is probably more important for him just to cover bodies than his own individual fitness program. So I think if there's any way he can, maybe just try and get him on the pitch against Girona. He'll probably have that Southampton game circled only in the League Cup. But I don't see him back in the squad tomorrow, to be honest. The question is whether he goes with Diaz as the number 9 or sticks with Núñez. I think he might go with Diaz, and Cody Gakpo keeps his place.
Yeah, I'd go with Diaz too. Paul has come in with another conspiracy. Is the reason that the presser has been moved from 9:15 because there's something to do with Salah's contract news? I don't think so. It's why we're on early, because we originally had we would have been at the press conference now, and we'd have been doing this afternoon. But I suppose it means more people are watching. We've got loads of questions to answer.
Yeah,
but nothing sinister there, is there, from what we know?
I'm not sure why a new contract would facilitate a change of time for the press conference. It's happened 3 times now, hasn't it? Yeah. I think Liverpool moved it from Friday to Thursday last week. I think there's a couple of weeks back when he moved it from 9 to 12:30, was it? I think it's more around about what the plan for the players is training-wise.
And finally, all that's left is score predictions.
1-0 Liverpool.
You've been positive. I'm thinking draw.
Salah penalty, 1-0.
We can all but hope. Maybe producer Ian will have a smile on his face on Monday.
He says that every time. Salah penalty.
I do, yeah.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all your questions. Maybe we'll have to start looking at doing a morning podcast more and bump Royal Blue out of its space with Ian. We'll be back on Monday. We're hopefully looking at a memorable Liverpool derby victory. Until next time, thanks and goodbye.